have a little look at the teams now because the players are in team preview. For Hinata, Kozuka, we have got Zacian, Charizard, Gastrodon, Groudon, Incineroar, and Grimmsnarl. It's that classic Rinja Sun 6 combination. But on the opposing side, a little bit of a mix-up. For Tomar, we have got the Incineroar, Shedinja, Kyogre, Zacian, Landorus, and Thundurus. Tomar is leading out with the Incineroar and the Thundurus. On the opposing side for Hinata, we have got that cheeky little Gastrodon paired up with the Zacian this time.
The Gastrodon are being in a nice position here, not threatened immediately by any of the grass moves, and that's actually one thing you lose when the Kartana leaves, right? You don't have access to something like the Leaf Blade to be able to easily one-hit knock it out, and taking that away means Tamar kind of has to play around it a little bit differently, not able to just switch that in and grab the knockout, so I hope that he has an option for it. Of course, Hinata going with a nice standard lead, we've seen this a couple times from these Rinja Sun teams, Zacian and of course the Gastrodon. Gastrodon immediately able to apply pressure. If it's not being threatened, it can cause this slower pressure with the Yawn, being able to cause problems that way. Obviously, there is the option for the fake out from the Incineroar, and then see what this Thundurus wants to get up to. I know that the Thundurus over on Tamar's team traditionally dodges that sort of build that we've seen a little bit yesterday with the Defiant and goes for something like the Prankster, so can cause a lot of problems that way, can potentially shut down the Gastrodon.
Yeah, it can be a really nice supportive role of a Pokemon, and it's going to be interesting in this game one for Hinata to kind of figure out what composition Toma has gone for on that Thundurus, but it is going to be the Taunt coming out straight away. I think it's revealing obviously that Prankster ability, going straight away, pulling in the Gastrodon, so it's not going to be able to go for something like a Yawn, and the Incineroar going to be able to pivot out as well with a parting shot, catching that Groudon switch on Hinata's side, going to be reducing the attack stat. And I mean, I like the switch out from Hinata going, hey, my Zacian's been intimidated, I want to switch it out, reset it later on, but then poor Groudon's had to suffer the consequences.
Something had to suffer, and it was either going to be the Zacian staying in and finally going down to a negative attack stat, or it was going to be something like the Gastrodon, you know, just not being able to do any damage. But the big thing that I was worried about with the Gastrodon was going to be those Yawns just being fired out and easily shut down. There it is. Go. Not able to use the attack. I really thought, you know, the best way to shut down Gastrodon, in my opinion, is by, of course, knocking it out. But Tomar showing there is another way, a more kind of passive way, if you will, being able to just shut it down with a taunt. So yes, the Gastrodon is in front of the Kyogre. That's a really good place for it to be, but it can't use one of the most impactful moves and may have to start looking. Of course, the Groudon in a really bad position now, not able to do all its damage, and it doesn't have control of the weather.
No, that's really true. Poor Groudon's in a really difficult situation here, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Hinata maybe making a few adjustments here, going for some kind of switches. Of course, both our players still have the utility for that Dynamax, and with both of these kind of restricted Pokemon, the Groudon and the Kyogre on the field, I think Kyogre is definitely in a prime position to maybe go for some damage. The issue is that Gastrodon, and even though it's been, you know, shut down from being able to go for something like a Yawn, having its ability still makes it a problem for Toma's Kyogre.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the Kyogre wants to throw out big attacks, right? The Gastrodon kind of makes you think twice about it, maybe forcing you into an Ice Beam, which is why that Incineroar has come in. But of course, you know, you can kind of keep it in check a little bit with this Thundurus. So even if you're handing over, you know, a bunch of kind of boosts, then they're just still going to be catching up. And yeah, I like this play so much.
Absolutely love this. You know, going for the Eerie Impulse, because if that Gastrodon is forced to go for the Ice Beam, it's going to be reduced damage into that Thundurus. And it gets a one-hit KO with the Water Spout from the Kyogre into the Incineroar. And I love having that, you know, double target water move, because yes, the Gastrodon's going to use Storm Drain to draw in attacks, but you will still hit that partner Pokemon, and you can see the Eerie Impulse really paying off. The Thundurus here isn't taking any damage really from that Ice Beam. Poor Gastrodon.
Well, the Gastrodon's being put in a really tough position. It can't Yawn. It's being forced to attack. That's really annoying. And while you think, yes, I'm getting all these boosts, the Thundurus is actually saying, no, you can have one, but I'm taking away two. And so you end up at a negative every single turn anyway. Of course, now the Kyogre has lost the rain. That's a bit of a problem. But its pivot out options are so plentiful because it's 4-3 in the Pokemon count.
Exactly. You could always just switch out that Kyogre, reset the weather for later on, and maybe bring in that Incineroar again just to throw and Intimidate down. The issue is, you know, that Groudon, at some point, Hinata's going to have to, you know, activate it. It's going to have to start dealing some damage. And I think the way Tom has been able to pivot Pokemon in and out, he's always got the utility to throw an Intimidate or a parting shot down against this Groudon. And it might have to be a bit of pill for Hinata to go, I'm going to be at a minus attack. But hey, look, we see that Landorus join the field.
It's a double switch, actually. We're going to see the Landorus and, of course, the Incineroar. The Landorus doesn't carry an Intimidate in the incarnate form, so having to bring in the Incineroar to make sure that lands. But really, the big question is, you know, where is that Gastrodon being able to target? If it lands the Ice Beam into the Landorus, that's disastrous here. And I don't know if showing that off right now is particularly my preferred option, but Obviously, Tomar feels that this pairing just needs to get in an advantageous position over something like the Groudon, and then they will be able to win the game. So definitely a really nice bit of board positioning here. Of course, whatever comes in is staring down a Dynamax Groudon now, though.
That it is, but I mean, I like the switch in here for the Landorus. If it is something like a Max Quake that was going to be going down into that Koga, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. So catching the flying type, going to be wasting one turn of Max, and it's actually the double up of the ground moves. Fantastic switch by Tomar here.
And that's a bad miss. A double ground target into that Landorus. Nicely done there from Tomar, getting maximum value. Of course, now I imagine Gastrodon's going to try Ice Beaming, but is it going to get the chance? You know, it could get faked out. It could, of course, have its special attack lowered even further by something like the Parting Shot. So a lot of options here. And that Landorus switch in looked a little bit dicey to me, but has paid absolute dividends there for Tomar. Hinata needs to start finding some options, because I think Tomar's positioning has been so good. And Hinata, you know, definitely a top player, knows the way around these matchups. As soon as either the Gastrodon or the Groudon gets taken out, then you're able to bring in this Thundurus and Kyogre combination and cause problems. The Gastrodon leaving, saving itself with the Kyogre, very nice. But this Zacian is not safe. It's looking at sheer force earth powers.
Exactly, and looking at, you know, a fire-type move, something like Flare Blitz coming out potentially from that Incineroar, but Tomar's going to now match the Dynamax here, and I think this is a great opportunity to go for it. You don't want to use your Dynamax for something like the Kyogre. Well, Gastrodon is still hanging about on the battlefield, and it is going to be that Landorus as well, so not necessarily going to be seeing Shift Force Earth Powers here, but we could be seeing some Max Quakes.
Oh, definitely. They could be causing a whole lot of problems. Max Quake would be setting up some really nice special defense boost to help out with that potential Gastrodon later. But the Max Airstream, of course, it's a flying type. It's going to have Max Airstream available to it. Is going to make some really nice speed control, which, as you've seen before, you boost up that Incineroar, it can Parting Shot out before your opponent gets to attack, and that's huge. Yeah,
I absolutely love this synergy here, and you can see the Incineroar going for that Parting Shot into the Zacian, so going to be reducing it back down to neutral, cancelling out that Intrepid Sword boost, and once again allowing Tomar the opportunity to start pivoting Pokemon in and out, particularly as Gastrodon's off the field. And, you know, he did such an expert job of being able to shut it down early on in this game. It now has the potential to come back in and get up to some disruption. So I like bringing the Thundurus back onto the field. We've got this double Genie combination here, being able to be like, I can target down against Gastrodon when it comes back. That does so little damage as well coming out from this Groudon here.
It might be 2022, but Double Genie lives on.
Woo!
It looks a little bit different with the Dynamax and an Incarnate form Landorus, but it's certainly still good, and it really does limit a little bit those Groudon options. Being able to say, you know what, you can't go for your favorite move, the Max Quake. You have to look at some of the other options, and then you see just how underwhelming they are as well. I mean, the Shadow Claw turning into the Max Phantasm. Shadow Claw feels useful in certain matchups, but here, yes, you get to lower some stats, but is it impactful enough? I just don't know. This, of course, Zacian now is staring down a potential Max Quake, and then this Groudon, you know, is going to be looking at some kind of sticky situations. You can also just try and maybe, you know, keep pivoting the board to your preferred option, and one of them makes a lot of sense. It's called Incineroar, and they're both physical attackers.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. You know, Tomar just doing the tried and tested strategy of rotating that Incineroar in and out, throwing these Intimidates down, because Hinata doesn't want to switch out, you know, the Dynamax Pokemon here. We're going to see a Max Quake come out from the Landorus, finding his mark on that Zacian, and will be able to pick up the KO against it. So Hinata loses the restricted Pokemon straight away to this Landorus, and now Groudon in a difficult spot where it has to find a way to get Hinata a little bit of momentum back. The special defense boosts are rising up on Tomar's side. Groudon's not going to worry about that too much, but it is going to be detrimental to the Gastrodon when it rejoins the field. Max Flare comes out, going to be, you know, keeping that sun in the sky, but you can just see how little damage this is doing to that opposing Landorus, and I mean, it's just so bulky and so offensive.
It's really causing a lot of problems, just being able to take these hits. Obviously, the Intimidates stacking up are really, really big, and have made this Groudon really, really tough to get that damage down. The other thing now, the Groudon's stuck. The Groudon's in a really sticky situation. It's stuck there with all these Intimidate boosts. You could be seeing another Parting Shot. Of course, it's not going to do anything this turn as it just gets faked out. But this Landorus still has one turn, and it reveals it carries the grass move. It's doing Kartana's job for it.
This is amazing, and it gets the one-hit KO against this Gastrodon. I mean, what a turn of events. Gastrodon in the first match we showcased was an absolute hero, and unfortunately for Hinata, the Gastrodon here has just been pinned left, right, and center, and Tomar has expertly shut down the annoying capabilities of Gastrodon, and now there is just this Groudon that has, you know, a very dwindled attack stat thanks to those Intimidates and Parting Shots. Tomar's just in an absolutely amazing position and hasn't lost a Pokemon.
This has been phenomenal board positioning by Tomar. Honestly, I'm so impressed, and I love this adaptation. in the Landorus. When I saw it before we got into game at Team Preview, it made a lot of sense. Obviously, Earth Power, Max Quake is a very impactful move in this current format, but being able to do the job of Kartana, knocking out Gastrodons, absolutely huge. Does have access to, I believe it's Grass Knot, that is then able to cause problems. And even though it may not be, you know, sometimes the most impactful, it's still enough to deal with something like the Gastrodon, and that's all it needs to do.
Well, the leads are coming out in this second match of the set. It's going to be the Zacian and the Gastrodon for Hinata, and for Tomas' side, it's going to be the Thunderous and Incineroar.
Right back to where we started, and honestly, this Gastrodon has to make a change. Isn't going to be able to sit there and just try and yawn. It knows about the taunt, but we do get a cool mind game, right? We do get players thinking a little bit further about it, thinking, well, is he going to taunt me again? Could I get a cheeky yawn that nobody's expecting, just because he's going to have to make a different play because he expects me to change it up? There's a lot going into this run back of turn number 1, and I really, really like it. I think it's a smart play from Tomar. He was able to lock out the game and makes a lot of sense. But Hinata's the one who, the onus is on him to make the changes.
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is the lead that can be so integral to him to allow that pivoting. We can see already the Incineroar going for that fake out straight into Gastrodon. I mean, that's one way to stop it going for any tricks. As the Thunder Wave comes out from the Thunderous, so that is going to connect into the Zacian, slow it down, and give it the risk of paralysis. Play Rough, however, is going to come out. It's breaking through that straight away, and it does do a significant chunk to that Thunderous, and I like the way Hinata is targeting down into this really disruptive Thunderous. We can see the item on there as well, Citrus Berry, so going to get a little bit of regain. But that Play Rough actually hit really hard for being at neutral.
Yeah, just the Intimidate going down to get rid of the Intrepid Sword wasn't really enough to stop this Thunderous getting hurt really badly, and that is something that he is going to have to focus on. I do like the adaptation there from Hinata, but it's a good kind of read from Tomar, right? In the last game, he saw that Zacian switch in for the Groudon, and maybe he thought I revealed the Groudon a bit early, it got caught out by the Kyogre, so keeping in that Zacian was then read into by Tomar, landing a nice Thunder Wave on there, and one of the fastest things on Hinata's team is now going to be very much slowed down, so Tomar isn't going to have to worry about potential speed control from his side of the field, is just going to be able to kind of set up and go for it on many, many turns, but Gastrodon actually getting to play the game a little bit more this time.
Yeah, it's throwing a little Protect out there, and it's going to avoid this taunt, and again, Tomar just being in such a commanding position, shutting things down. The Incineroar's going to go straight for a Flare Blitz, however, down into this opposing Zacian, having the speed advantage thanks to that paralysis, and it does so much damage. Play Rough comes out again, though it's able to break through for a second time and pick up the KO, and this is a key moment for Hinata, getting rid of that disruptive Pokemon, and critically, the Gastrodon has not been hit by a Taunt or an Eerie Impulse, so that was a great Protect from Gastrodon.
That's massive. Being able to stick around and potentially yawn for the next few turns is going to change up this game plan significantly. It also changes up Tomar's switching options that were so vital in game number 1. Being able to switch into that Thunderous was absolutely huge, and of course force the Groudon to be respectful and not just throw out Max Quakes or later on a potential Precipice Blades as well. But the Landorus comes back to the field. That is going to be the focal point right now. Does it want to try and deal with the Gastrodon? It probably should. I mean, the Incineroar's outspeeding the Zacian. That could just land a Flare Blitz there. And of course, you know about the Max Overgrowth now. Then you can just target that into the Gastrodon. With that in mind, you've just got to be respectful of those potential moves. And do you have a good switch? Gastrodon's just protected, so what's in the back? What could take that Max Overgrowth? And I think, honestly, Tomar's going to be forced to make a bit of a read here. There's no way Hinata lets that Max Overgrowth go down, is probably the line of thinking. He could be cheeky and try and you know, get it through, but if he's switching out, what's coming in? Can you capitalize on that?
Yeah, no switch is happening though, but there is going to be a Dynamax coming out on Tomar's side, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this be that Landorus once again. There we go, and that Max Overgrowth is applying so much pressure to little Gastrodon, unless it's going to try and push for something like a double Protect, but even then, you're still stuck the next turn, and that's a difficult situation for Hinata to manage here. We're going to be seeing that Max Overgrowth, and it's not going to be trying to double Protect, it's connecting straight down into that Gastrodon, and it's going to be able to pick up the one-hit KO against it. So yes, Gastrodon hung on a little longer in this game too, but unfortunately wasn't able to go for a Yawn or an Ice Beam, and it's just been knocked out straight away.
Honestly, a little bit shocked to see the Gastrodon left to do that. Of course, the Max Overgrowth also threatens the Groudon quite significantly there, so that causes problems, right? You need something like the Incineroar to come in and try and help out there, but not able to do that is absolutely huge. Of course, the Landorus, for its troubles, does get caught by a Behemoth Blade, but the Flare Blitz now is going to take out the Zacian. It's going to be down to the last two. That's really big if you're the Groudon player, because yes, you're stuck, and as soon as that Kyogre turns up, guess what? Then it's going to be able, of course, to set up that rain and just tear through, especially for the Groudon now as well. It doesn't have Gastrodon to switch in and take those attacks. So this is looking very, very dicey for Hinata Kozuka. And Tomar has played another fantastic game. I'm just not sure about leaving in something like that Gastrodon when you knew about the max overgrowth.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like you mentioned, Groudon doesn't want to take one of those either, and it's a hard switch in, but hey, there's a Charizard. That potentially could have taken something like the max overgrowth, but it looks like Hinata wanted to establish this endgame state, setting up the Sun and having the Charizard, and of course, Hinata still has the option to go for the Dynamax here, so it could be an option to be able to get the, you know, G-Max Wildfire up on the field, starting to get a little bit of residual damage, but as you've already pointed out, Tomar still has the capabilities to switch Pokemon in and out.
That's going to be really big, and making sure the endgame position is set perfectly is how Tomar closes out this game. There is something that we have to consider a little bit when it comes down to these last two that we see from Hinata. The speed was looking really, really good for Tomar when he obviously paralyzed the Zacian, was then able to kind of sweep through for a little bit and got a lot of room out of that. But this Charizard mixes things up quite a lot. Bringing that in, saying, you know what, I can set up big, powerful max airstreams, get my Pokemon faster than you, means that kind of traditional endgame where you just bring in Kyogre and win is certainly a little bit harder. So I think, you know, Tomar may have to try and keep up with those max airstreams, but he is going to be in a little tough position to do it, right? This Landorus has taken a lot of damage from that Behemoth Blade the last turn, and therefore could quite easily get knocked out by something like this Charizard while it's capitalizing on solar power.
Well, there's the max airstream we talked about. It's going to connect down onto the opposing Incineroar and get the KO against it, so forcing a 2v2 Pokemon endgame in this game too, and of course getting the speed up on Hinata's side of the field as well. And as you mentioned, Adam, it's going to be critical for the Landorus to be trying to match these as well. Otherwise, Hinata's going to be in such a strong position. Throw it out with the Rock Tomb as well. That's another way to gain some speed control. Going to be reducing the speed of that opposing Landorus. So even if there's a max airstream, it's still slower, but it's going to be the max Rockfall. This is something Charizard never wants to face. It's a one-hit KO.
That's an easy way to deal with the Charizard. Why play the speed game if you can just knock it out? That is a critical hit.
Wow.
That is able to just easily knock that out. No training, no Dynamax, no nothing. It's going to save you from a critical hit max Rockfall, and that's disastrous for Hinata Kozuka. Was relying on that, and honestly, the way that turn was going was so nice, forcing Tomar to be worried about speed with the Rock Tomb, with the max airstream, but the Landorus just turns around and says, you know what, I don't care, Charizard. I am going to knock you out. I'm just going to deal with you so fast. And yeah, you've got a speed boost on your Groudon, but guess what? It's going to struggle when it's in the rain against a Kyogre at full health.
Yeah, you can have all the speed you want, but you're going to be the last remaining Pokemon. And this is something we talked about coming into this game too, that Charizard, it has so many weaknesses on the opposing side, and that Landorus just proved why it was a difficult Pokemon to bring in here. But, you know, Hinata pinned all the hopes on it, and just unfortunately it wasn't to be. Shadow Claw comes out from the speedier Groudon, but it doesn't get a KO, and Kyogre's going to go for that Water Spout, full HP in the rain, and get the knockout. Tomar is going to be the winner of this set, 2-0.
Bang tidy in that one, being able to clean that up, saving the Kyogre for last is the way to do it. That is a crushing game too, I think. A very confident set, honestly, from Tomar, starting the day out 2-0. A lot of people looking at that team, you know, particularly the Europeans, seeing it, knowing they had to prep for it, and I just think Hinata maybe got caught a little bit, maybe worried about the Shedinja showing up.